This is the same 15 feet of pavement, same angle, same corner of the world, 100 years apart. Nobody who stood here in 1926 could have imagined what you're about to see. And by the end of this video, neither will you. We're not moving the camera once, not a single pan, not a single tilt. Because the camera isn't the story. Time is. Every war, every recession, every reinvention America ever went through passed directly through this one frame. All you have to do is watch. Let's go back to where it all started. In 1904, this intersection wasn't even called Times Square. It was Longacre Square, a quiet carriage district nobody cared about. Then, the New York Times moved its headquarters here, and on December 31st, 1904, they threw a party that never really ended. Within 20 years, this crossroads had become something the world had never seen before, a place built entirely to be looked at. Electric signs weren't just advertising anymore, they were spectacle. Camel cigarettes blew smoke rings 50 feet into the sky. This was the birth of the billboard as an art form. Newspapers started calling it the Great White Way because at night this stretch of Broadway was so densely packed with electric bulbs that people swore you could read a newspaper at midnight standing right here. Out-of-towners rode the train into Manhattan for one reason alone: to stand in this exact spot and watch the city glow. But this golden age was about to collide with something no amount of neon could light up. Watch what happens to this same street in less than 15 years. By the 1930s, the country had entered the Great Depression. And here's what's strange. The worse the economy got, the brighter this square seemed to shine. People still found nickels for a movie ticket here. Times Square wasn't just surviving the Depression, it was selling people an escape from it. More than 40 theaters lined these blocks. Vaudeville acts shared marquees with the worst talking pictures. Ticket prices dropped a penny some nights just to keep the seats full. And it worked, because people didn't come here for luxury. They came for 2 hours where the outside world simply didn't exist. Inside these walls, the lights never dimmed, even while bread lines stretched for blocks just a few streets away. This was the most electrified half-mile on planet Earth. Times Square used more electricity than some entire American cities. Then, the lights went out. Not metaphorically, actually out. In 1942, the government ordered a wartime dim-out. Every light on Broadway that could be seen from the Atlantic Ocean was considered a gift to German U-boats. So the city that never sleeps learned to whisper. For the first time in its history, this frame sat in near darkness. The marquees powered down block after block. But something remarkable happened in that darkness. This is where America gathered to hear the news. Newsstands on this corner sold out within minutes every time a headline broke. When Germany surrendered in May of 1945, and again when Japan surrendered that August, this exact intersection filled with more people than it had ever held before. 2 million people, right here in this frame on a single night. Strangers hugging strangers under signs that had only just flickered back on. The war didn't dim this place. It proved what it was for. Now, here's the chapter nobody puts on postcards. By the 1970s, New York City was nearly bankrupt, and Times Square, once the most photographed intersection on Earth, became the epicenter of the city's collapse. Adult theaters replaced Broadway marquees. Crime rates here were among the highest in the entire country. Tourists were handed pamphlets warning them which blocks to avoid. City budgets for policing, sanitation, and lighting had been gutted. Landlords let buildings rot rather than pay to maintain them, because property values here had collapsed so badly that abandonment was cheaper than upkeep. This same sidewalk that once held 2 million people celebrating victory was now a place people crossed the street to avoid after dark. Storefronts that once sold movie tickets now sold peep shows. The subway entrance on this very corner became something police warned tourists to walk past quickly, not linger near. For almost 2 decades, this frame told a story of a city that had simply given up on one of its most famous addresses. So how did this become the family-friendly tourist magnet millions visit every single year? The answer involves a mouse. Literally. In 1994, Mayor Rudy Giuliani and a coalition of developers made a bet that seemed almost absurd. Clean up 42nd Street, and the crowds and the money would come back. Nobody was sure it would work. This was a neighborhood built on peep shows and porn theaters, a place cops called the Deuce because it was considered one of the most dangerous blocks in the entire country. Cleaning it up meant fighting landlords who were making a fortune off adult businesses, fighting a decade of the city's own reputation, and betting hundreds of millions of dollars on the idea that families would actually want to walk here again. The Walt Disney Company signed a lease to restore the New Amsterdam Theater, the very same building that had been showing adult films just years earlier. Think about that for a second. A stage that once hosted flickering reels for a handful of strangers in the dark was about to host The Lion King. 8 shows a week, sold out, families in matching t-shirts lined up around the block. Disney's involvement became the symbol of the entire transformation, the moment the story of Times Square flipped from decline to rebirth.
Critics called it sanitized, corporate, Disney-fied. Locals said Times Square had traded grit for a shopping mall, that something real had been scrubbed away along with the crime. Artists who'd made cheap rent work in the surrounding blocks got pushed out as property values climbed. There's a real argument to be made that New York lost a piece of its raw, dangerous, unpredictable soul the moment the M&M store moved in. But whatever you call it, it worked. In the most literal, measurable sense. Foot traffic exploded. Real estate values in the district multiplied, in some cases by more than 10 times within a single decade. Chain stores, giant toy shops, and family restaurants moved into buildings that a decade earlier had been condemned, boarded up, or occupied by businesses the city wanted gone. Toys R Us built a store here with a functioning Ferris wheel inside it. A Ferris wheel, indoors, on the same block where undercover cops used to make arrests every single night. By the end of the decade, Times Square wasn't just safe again. It was becoming the most visited tourist attraction in the entire world, drawing over 26 million visitors a year, more than the Grand Canyon, more than Disneyland itself. And then came the screens. Not signs anymore, screens. Digital, programmable, impossibly bright billboards that turned this intersection into something closer to a stock exchange for attention itself. The old signs were static, painted, lit from behind, changed maybe once a season when a new advertiser bought the space. The new screens changed by the second. They played video, they synced to each other, they reacted to events happening on the other side of the planet in real time. Companies started competing not just for space, but for square footage of pixels, running video ads that changed by the second, each one trying to outglow the billboard next to it, in a kind of arms race made entirely of light. In 2009, the city permanently closed Broadway to car traffic here, turning the street itself into a pedestrian plaza with folding chairs and painted crosswalks where taxis used to honk. For over 100 years, this exact patch of asphalt had been built for cars, for carriages, for the churn of traffic moving through Manhattan. And then, almost overnight, it wasn't. No more cars in this frame, just people, millions of them, sitting where engines used to idle, eating lunch on plastic chairs in the middle of what used to be one of the busiest streets in the world. Today, a single billboard here can cost over $4 million a year to lease. Not to build, not to buy, just to rent the light for 12 months. Some of the biggest screens here generate more revenue per square foot than almost any other piece of real estate on Earth. More than office towers, more than luxury retail, more than most entire city blocks combined. This corner, the same corner that sat dark during World War II, the same corner tourists were once warned to avoid, is now, by some measures, the most valuable half-acre of advertising real estate on the planet. Same 15 feet of pavement, 100 years. Empire, war, ruin, and reinvention all happened right here in one single frame. No camera move needed to capture it, because the change was never in the shot. It was in the century passing through it. The camera never had to pan, never had to cut away, because the story wasn't the buildings. It was everyone who ever stood on this spot and everything they carried with them when they did. Think about who stood exactly here. Soldiers celebrating the end of a world war, throwing their hats in the air with no idea a camera would ever catch it. Commuters hurrying past peep shows with their heads down, just trying to get to the subway before dark. Cops on a beat nobody wanted, walking the same block night after night when almost no one else would. Tourists in matching Disney t-shirts, cameras around their necks, waiting in line for a show in a theater that used to run a very different kind of film.
Bankers and analysts glancing up at stock tickers scrolling by in lights 40 feet tall, checking numbers on a screen the size of a building. All of them standing on the same 15 feet of concrete, separated only by decades, never once realizing they were sharing the exact same ground. That's the part that gets me every time I look into this stuff. None of these people were thinking about the others. The soldier in 1945 wasn't picturing a Disney billboard. The commuter dodging peep show flyers in 1979 had no clue a giant toy store with a Ferris wheel was coming. Nobody standing here ever really believes their version of the block is temporary. It always feels permanent, right up until it isn't.
Times Square didn't just survive a century, it rewrote itself 5 different times, and it's probably not done yet. Every single time this neighborhood looked finished, looked like it had hit rock bottom or peaked for good, something came along and rebuilt it from the ground up. Empire to entertainment, entertainment to decay, decay to danger, danger to Disney, Disney to digital. If a single street corner can go from horse carts to Hiroshima headlines to Hollywood-style screens in one lifetime, what do you think this exact spot looked like in 2126? Drop your prediction in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm pulling the best predictions for a follow-up video. Holograms instead of billboards? Self-driving pods gliding past where taxis used to honk? Or maybe, somehow, after all these reinventions, it ends up quiet again, the way it started. Before the lights, before the crowds, before any of this. If you want to see the same one-camera, one-century treatment done on another city, London, Tokyo, maybe even your own hometown, subscribe and turn on notifications, because that's exactly what's coming next on this channel. Same corner, same camera, 100 more years to go.